Quick tip for when chalking your hands, don't just do the palm. Remember to get this part here, the webbing between your index finger and your thumb, because remember where the barbell rests. Get some more grip right here, and that'll help you keep a grip on that barbell.
Hey everyone, Selwyn here from Wynn Strength, bringing you week 11 of the Average to Savage 2.0 Hypertrophy training program written by Greg Nichols over at Stronger by Science. Like usual, I'll leave links in the description below so you can check out the program as well as the Stronger by Science website, two great resources that I highly recommend checking out. So wrapping up week 11, this is actually the second to last week before the second deload of the current training program. For those that don't know, the Average to Savage 2.0 is a 21-week program split up into 3 phases with 2 deloads in between each phase. Currently in the second phase of the Hypertrophy edition. There are several different editions available, so that's why I think it's a great program for the value. It's extremely affordable, and you get a lot of different options and a lot of flexibility to execute the program. But we're definitely seeing some good progress in this second phase on the last half. The second half of the second phase, definitely a lot better performance this time when compared with the second half of the first phase. So I think we're definitely realizing some of those progressions from that first phase just kind of displaying itself here in this second phase of training, which I think is kind of exciting to see. Training really sucked for that first phase, and now still sucks, but it sucks a lot less, and the weight and the load recommendations aren't dropping as much as they were in the previous phase, and we're actually meeting, and every now and then we're exceeding some of those training and load recommendations. So I think that's a really cool illustration of building strength and muscle takes a lot of time, and it's not necessarily a linear fashion. I've been training for several years, and you hit plateaus along the way, you hit declines in strength and size, and all these things pop up. And I heard a great analogy where it's kind of like you're building a skyscraper or building a house. You don't just keep throwing bricks and it's like this linear fashion, and then all of a sudden you have a house. Different things take different times. Certain structures get built in different lengths of time and can build while others aren't getting built. So like foundation goes up, then the sticks go up, and then you get the bricks to come up as well around that. While that's happening, you can start putting electrical in, you can start putting plumbing, but it's not all happening in a linear fashion. And I think that's a great way to look at how building strength and building muscle and that whole thing works, because we're not a machine. It's a very complex process that's happening behind the scenes. So don't get discouraged. All that to say is just don't get discouraged with lack of progress, because the longer you stick with it, the more progress you're going to see. And I think that eventuates itself in unexpected ways down the path when you're kind of giving up hope. But very excited to see how the main core lifts are progressing. Almost all of them have progressed this week except for the overhead press. And again, it wasn't that far off. We only missed the rep recommendations by 2 reps in that last set. And that's kind of not surprising. One of the lifts I've struggled with in the past if you follow this channel for any amount of time. But again, we're still hitting great numbers there. And I think that's I think that's one of the cool things about the program. So bodyweight update. If you're not aware, for the phases 2 and 3, I'm actually wanting to lose a little bit of weight. The goal over that 16-week period is to lose around pound a week, 15 to 16 pounds. Best case scenario, we lose about 20 pounds, but we're going from around 208 to 212. So it kind of varied based on that day. So right around that rate range, we've lost around anywhere from 6 to 10 pounds, depending on the day of measurement. So we're kind of tracking along just nicely with that timeline of around a pound a week on average. One thing to note with dropping weight is, again, like building muscle, it's not linear. You're going to have ups and downs along the way. You're going to gain weight, and then all of a sudden you're going to lose some weight as well. So it's a cool process. Just be patient with it. I've been kind of bulking. I bulked for around 3 to 4 months, and then just held that weight for maybe a month, and now looking to drop a little bit of weight, get a rid of a little bit of that excess fluff around the edges. Definitely check out my video where I talk about my top tips as to how I like to lose weight. More actionable steps that you can do right now. You don't have to worry about a solid plan to have, but these are just things you can do immediately to create that precipice for change, so you can start dropping weight immediately. But all that to say is tracking along nicely with that progress, and the workouts haven't been too grueling. Other previous times in the past when I've tried to drop weight a little quicker or a little bit more drastically, workouts have suffered, training has suffered because we're operating in a caloric deficit. Things just suck a little bit more. I think we're combining the progress from week 1, and we're not trying to lose weight as drastically this time. Again, a pound a week, and if I don't hit a pound a week, I'm still kind of happy as long as that overall trend is going down. That's kind of fine. So couple those two factors there. Training this week obviously hasn't gone terribly. It's gone pretty well, and it hasn't felt as sucky as it has in the past. So definitely keep that in mind with your own weight loss goals or weight gain goals, whatever the case may be. Think about taking things a little bit slower, which I'm a fan of, so that you can keep training as good as it can be, as good as it can possibly be, given the fact that you want to gain or lose some weight there. Definitely losing weight training is going to be a lot harder when you're trying to lose weight, because you are restricting one of those resources that helps you train. So what I'll do now is throw over to some training highlights over the course of the week. So we're still getting used to the higher barbell position, but it's slowly getting better. I mean, realistically, that's still a low bar barbell position on the back. Ideally, we'd be resting on top of the traps, but we're slowly transitioning up the back to get that working there. The big positive note that I think that small tweak has made is help mitigate any shoulder discomfort that typically shows up when I do the heavy low bar back squats. Depth is marginally okay. I could go about 1 to 2 inches lower. Those are the things I keep a close eye on during the squat. There'll be the feet, the hips, the knees, and back angle. You'll see some weight shifting from my heels to my toes during the ascent, but at least my knees are tracking my toes and aren't sliding backwards. My hips aren't rising faster than the shoulders, which means my back angle isn't getting more horizontal at the start of the lift. And I think that's something that's been a good carryover from the SSB yoke barbell squats up until now. And I think these are some pretty good squats. The biggest deficiency is going to be the depth, which could be lower. Next up, we're moving on to some deficit deadlifts. The one improvement with the high volume is that I haven't had to rely on straps for the entirety of the working splits this week. I think that's a great improvement with the grip coming up. We've been focusing on setting the weights down a little bit softer this week. Just controlling the descent of the deadlift, but not necessarily coming to a complete stop at the bottom. Mainly just slowing down the barbell in the hopes to increase time under tension for the entire set, which should help with the overall muscle building goal of the program. Since our primary goal here isn't necessarily to lift the most amount of weight, rather we're training submaximum weights to stimulate the muscles as much as possible, and hopefully using some slight tweaks to make more progress on those training goals. Here we have the strict overhead press. The technique is slightly a little bit better this week than it was last week. There's less side-to-side shifting in the hips, which makes me think I'm getting better at stabilizing my legs during the lift, focusing there on squeezing the glutes as well as the quads. Less lower back arching ever so slightly, which again I think is a sign of that core catching up to the lift, getting better at bracing. I don't like to catch my breath at the top of the lift, which does sound counterintuitive, but I found personally that with my arm extended, I can get a deeper breath than when the weight is resting on the shoulders, but there I waited a little too long to catch my breath and just couldn't keep up. I did try to rest a couple of seconds for some rest to try and continue with the set. But I think pausing that long at the top, even though I was catching my breath, just added too much stress on the shoulders and fatigued them too much. Really here, starting again. And again, you'll see that sticking point where I'm not really shooting my head straight through. We try again and just can't get past that sticking point there, and that'll help by focusing on pushing my forehead through to get that barbell path in alignment there. Moving on to some front squats. Moving really quickly on both the ascent and the descent of the squat, which is okay. I could probably slow down the descent a little bit, keep the explosive ascent the same, but again, just work on increasing that time and attention really. I have found the hip width stance and toes at around 40 degrees to be the most comfortable for me personally. Being able to focus on opening up the hips at the bottom and getting those knees out has helped me maintain more of an upright torso, which is helping with the progress of the squat. And as I practice the front squat more and more, the technique is becoming less of an issue, and my strength is starting to become that limiting factor there. I tried to look down for a rep, but it didn't really work. So keeping my head up has been helping me with the form and keeping that back angle as upright as possible. Wrapping up here with some deadlift. The deadlift has been progressing really well. You notice I am using straps again this week. I use these for pretty much all the working sets here. Just as the weight gets heavier and those high reps come up, I prefer to stick with the lifting straps rather than to go with the alternating grip. I could feel my hands slipping I could feel the barbell slipping in my hands in the warm-up sets. So rather than kind of sacrifice some weight there in the working sets, I just threw some lifting straps on. I was able to exceed the rep recommendations this week, which is kind of awesome. And that's the first time in training this program that's actually happened for the deadlift. So I'm pretty stoked with that result there. Hopefully is a better sign of better adaptations towards the conditioning aspect of the program, just because my cardio and conditioning is kind of keeping up. Technique wise, you can see my lower back shifting sideways at the start of the pull. Something I need to work on is breaking that core better at the start. You'll see it slide and unlock out of position almost. So I do need to start on probably starting with the hips a little bit higher with less movement before the barbell leaves the ground. You'll also notice the balance on my feet is off with weight shifting towards my toes. That wraps up training for the week. As you can see, no accessory movements were done this week. I just kind of stuck with the main core compound movements. And again, I think that was mainly due to time restraints, and I think that's helping with the overall progress of the program. Check out my previous week where I talk about training priorities, just because I think it's important to have priorities in training, because when you prioritize certain things, they can really advance really well. And when you're trying to do too many things at once, when you try to chase two rabbits, you end up catching neither of them. So hopefully this video helped you with your training. This has been Selwyn from Wynn Strength, and remember, a better life through strength.